It's Nuala Whisper. Today I'm going to be drinking tea and reading from book 5 of The Wheel of Time, which is called The Fires of Heaven. We have a really nice crackling fire going. Even though it may be chilly outside, I want you to get comfortable for this fireside story. And this is just a random part of the book near pretty close to the beginning. It's just where I happen to be myself in the book, so apologies for anyone that might not have gotten this far. And they're reading earlier books. I don't want to give anything away, so spoiler alert. So I just poured my tea. I'll wait a little bit for it to steep, but we'll get started. Asmodean's barked laugh was utterly acid. The shadow take me. You must be beginning to think you really are the bloody creator. We are dead, both of us, dead. Are you too blind with pride to see it? Or just too thick-witted, you hopeless shepherd? Rand refused to be drawn. Then why not go ahead and end it? He asked in a tight voice. I wasn't too blind to see what you and Lanfear were up to. I wasn't too thick-witted to fool her and trap you. If there's no hope, no chance, not the smallest shred, then why are you still alive? Still not looking at him, Asmodean rubbed the side of his nose. I once saw a man hanging from a cliff, he said slowly. The brink was crumbling under his fingers, and the only thing near enough to grasp was a tuft of grass. A few long blades with roots barely clinging to the rock. The only chance he had of climbing back up on the cliff, so he grabbed it. His abrupt chuckle held no mirth. He had to know it would pull free. Did you save him? Rand asked. But Asmodean did not answer. As Rand started for the doorway, the sounds of the March of Death began again behind him. The strings of beads fell together behind him, and the 5 maidens who had been waiting in the wide, empty hall flowed easily to their feet from where they had been squatting on the pale blue tiles. They were all but one tall for women, though not for Isle women. Their leader, Adalyn, lacked a little more than a hand of being able to look him in the eyes. The exception, a fiery redhead named Anela, was no taller than Egwene, and extremely touchy about being so short. Like the clan except for a tail at the nape of the neck. Full quivers balanced the long-bladed knives at their belts, and they wore cased horn bows on their backs. Each carried 3 or 4 short, long-bladed spears in a round, bull-hide buckler. While women who did not want hearth and children had their own warrior society. Far Tares Mai, the maidens of the spear. He acknowledged them with a small bow, which made them smile. It was not an Ayu custom, at least not the way he had been taught to do it. "I see you, Adeline," he said. "Where is Joinda? I thought she was with you earlier. Has she taken ill?" "I see you, Rand Althor," she replied. Her pale yellow hair seemed paler, framing her sun-dark face, which had a fine white scar across one cheek. "In a way, she has. She has been talking to herself all day, and not an hour ago she went off to lay a bridal wreath at the feet of Garan of the Chirad Goshian." Some of the others shook their heads. Marrying meant giving up the spear. "Tomorrow is his last day as her Gaishain. Joinda is Black Rock Sharad," she added significantly. It was significant. Marriages came frequently, with men or women taken Gaishain, but very seldom between clans with blood feud, even blood feud in abeyance. "It is an illness that spreads," Anela said heatedly. Her voice was usually as hot as her hair. "1 or 2 maidens make their bridal wreaths every day since we came to Ruidian." I'm going to pause for a second to get my tea ready. Pour some honey in. And stir it a little. Rand nodded with what he hoped they took for sympathy. It was his fault. If he told them, he wondered how many would still risk staying near him. All probably. Honor would hold them, and they had no more fear than the clan chiefs. At least, it was only marriages so far. Even maidens would think marrying better than what some had experienced. Maybe they would. "I'll be ready to go in a moment," he told them. "We will wait with patience," Adeline said. It hardly seemed patient. Standing there, they all appeared poised on the edge of sudden movement. It really did take him only a moment to do what he wanted. Weave flows of spirit and fire into a box around the room and tie them so the weave held on its own. Anyone could go in or out, except a man who could channel for himself or Asmodean. Walking through that doorway would be like walking through a wall of solid flame. He had discovered the weave, and that Asmodean, blocked, was too weak to channel it by accident. No one was likely to question the doings of a gleeman, but if someone did, Jasin Notale had simply chosen to sleep as far from Aiel as he could manage in Ruidian. That was a choice that Hadnan Kadir's drivers and guards at least could sympathize with. And this way, Rand knew exactly where the man was of a night. The maidens asked him no questions. He turned away. The maidens followed him, spread out and wary, as if they expected an attack right there. Asmodean was still playing the lament. Arms outstretched to either side, Matt Cawthon walked the wide, white coping of the dry fountain, singing to the men who watched him in the fading light. We'll drink the wine till the cup is dry, and kiss the girls so they'll not cry, and toss the dice until we fly to dance with Jack of the Shadows. The air felt cool after the day's heat, and he thought briefly of buttoning up his fine green silk coat with the golden embroidery. But the drink Aiel called Usquai had put a buzz in his head like giant flies, and the thought flittered away. The white stone figures of 3 women stood on a platform in the dusty basin, 20 feet tall and unclothed. Each had been made with one hand upraised, the other holding a huge stone jar tilted over her shoulder for water to pour from. But one was missing her head and upraised hand, and on another the jar was a shattered ruin. We'll dance all night while the moon runs free, and dandle the lasses upon our knee, and then you'll ride along with me to dance with Jack of the Shadows. A fine song to be singing about death, one of the wagon drivers shouted in a heavy Lugarder accent. Kadir's men kept themselves in a tight knot, apart from the Aielmen around the fountain. They were all tough, hard-faced men, but everyone was sure any Aiel would slit his throat for a wrong glance. They were not far in the wrong. 'Tisn't right to sing about death that way. Matt Mosley considered that the song he had been singing and grimaced. No one had heard Dance with Jack of the Shadows since Aldashar fell. In his head, he could still hear the defiant song rising as the Golden Lions launched their last futile charge at Archer Hawking's encircling army. At least he had not been babbling it in the old tongue. He was not as juicy as he looked by half, but there had indeed been too many cups of usquai. The stuff looked and tasted like brown water, but it hit your head like a mule's kick. Moraine will pack me off to the tower yet if I'm not careful. At least it would get me out of the waste and away from Rand. Maybe he was drunker than he thought, if he considered that a fair trade. He shifted to Tinker in the kitchen. Alright, I think I'll stop there for now. Sorry, it's such a random little excerpt. I probably can't get much of a story out of it if that's all you're hearing. But I wasn't thinking of doing it as much for the story as more just the sound